All right, welcome everybody to today's MVP Office Hours for May 5th. We are so glad to have you join us today. The first thing that you should be able to see is our slide of events here. And before I do a run through of those, just want to let you know that this is Jackie Travieso, and Dale Ziegler is joining me as my technical guru on the other side. Jared is not able to join us today, but we will catch him next time. So the events that we have coming up across the nation is the Lightning Now tours. Those are recently announced. They should be coming to a city near you. You could go ahead and Google the Lightning Now tours. Those are a free, generally 2-day event, and I would highly recommend that you take advantage of those even if you are not yet ready to roll out Lightning. I think it'll give you a great foundation of things to think about, questions to ask, and some preparation ideas. Texas Dreaming is in May, along with, then we have Trailhead DX, which is scheduled for June. Forest Landia out in Portland, if you've heard of that. Midwest Dreaming, which is becoming huge. I think last year they had something like 700-800 people attend. That's out in Chicago. And then something that is new this year is called Witness Success. They're going to piggyback off of Midwest Dreaming and follow their event in Chicago. Check out their website at witnesssuccess.com for all of the details there. And of course, we've got Dreamforce 2017 scheduled in November, and then we still have the world tours that are taking place as well. So I would highly recommend that you check out a lot of those events. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but some good stuff there for you to check out. All right,
and
let's.
Just one quick note: if anybody did not catch the blog post this week, Call for Speakers will open for Dreamforce June 1st. It's either Thursday or Friday, but those will open June 1st. And then if I can selfishly speak on Midwest Dreaming real fast, Call for Speakers on that closes today, 5 p.m. Central. So you got about 4 hours, MidwestDreaming.com.
All right, good job. Okay, sorry about that. So that takes us to, if you are brand new to this call and have never attended before, we meet the first and third Friday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's always an open Q&A discussion. We don't generally have outlined presentations. We do bring guest speakers to you with a certain area or focus of expertise. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about approach, give you pointers, talk about resources and recommendations. If you have questions around, let's say, code or process builder or flow, where someone would need to kind of sit down with you or look at screenshots, we just recommend that you start out in Community on Answers first, post your question, all of your screenshots, and then maybe post a link to that particular post in the Success Community MVP Office Hours group, and that should give you worldwide exposure to your questions so you can get a plethora of responses and recommendations. So this call actually is being recorded. We post it to Twitter and to Community in case you want to go back and relive it or make a recommendation to a coworker or a friend to take a listen. If you haven't already, please go ahead and put yourself on mute so we can eliminate all of the background noise. If you have questions, please, I encourage you to raise your hand in the chat. There's no question that is too big, too small, too elementary. It's a completely open discussion. Announce yourself before you ask the question so we know who we're speaking to. And please, everybody on the call is welcome to share their experiences. Even though this is called MVP Office Hours, it's open to everybody to share their experiences and recommendations. So with that, I would like to go ahead and introduce to you to today's special guest, Kelly Leslie. Kelly, I'll go ahead and say hello to the group, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie and Dale, and for everyone that's listening, and I hope going to be participating here on our call today. Yes, my name is Kelly Leslie. I'm with Allium, and I'm in the consulting world. However, I wasn't always there. In 2010, I started as an accidental admin, is what I like to refer to me as, where our VP of sales purchased this thing called Salesforce, threw it on my desk and said, hey, we need 100% adoption of all of our seasoned sales reps. So my journey began back then.
There are so many of us who have that exact same story, so you are not alone.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk today, or Leslie's going to talk today about getting leadership and peer buy-in and how to take all of those things that you do when it comes to leadership and peer buy-in and using that to position yourself to advance your career and really solidify your position as a Salesforce admin or developer or lead role or project manager, and how to solidify that and really focus on growing yourself and showing your value. So we've got actually a great slide here. I'm going to go ahead and advance that if you would, Dale, please. And Kelly, I'm just going to let you go ahead and kick it off and kind of give us a framework about what all of this means, and then ask the audience to, at any time, chime in and ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that don't know me, I am on Twitter. I'm Chatty Admin. So the reason why I bring that up is because I can talk for hours and hours about the Salesforce ecosystem. So I want to keep that in mind, that this is not about me. This is more about what questions you guys have as it relates specifically to our conversation today, if we can keep it to leadership buy-in and or advancing your career. So the slide that you have up here in front of you, I have this little secret. It's a formula I like to say that it's going to help advance anyone's Salesforce career. And this could go for developers and or any kind of admins, right? So for those of you that are on the call, either you're maybe a solo admin, maybe you're a lonely dev, maybe you have a whole team of people. No matter what role that you're taking, these are my 5 tips for you, or I'm going to call them my checklist to advance your Salesforce career. And I'll talk briefly through them, and please at any point if there's any questions or concerns, you can chat them and or raise your hand, as Jackie mentioned. So the first one, a lot of times, I know I was so guilty of this back in the day. I used to call the Salesforce my Salesforce org, right? I was very protective of it. I wanted to make sure everything was legit and good data and people were using it. But the one thing that I think I missed the most was kind of flipping the way my perspective was and identifying who are my users. And once I started really not only looking at, okay, sales is my users, service is my users, customer service reps, sales reps, you know, identifying within my organization, I was able to quickly position myself as more of a consultant. So first up, I had to identify who are my users. But then the second step is really switching your perspective and looking at your users as your customers. And the reason why I did that is because I feel like the admin and or the developer role is really about servicing. So by thinking of it as a customer-based tool and helping your end users know that you have them in their best interest, it's going to help grow adoption. So then the third step that I always say, once you have them in your mind as a customer, you're going to want to make that customer happy, right? You want to make sure you're meeting expectations of that customer, no matter even if it's a stakeholder of a project or the end user of who's going to be working this process that you're implementing. My big tip is ask a lot of questions. Act as a consultant would. You know, ask why. And I'm going to say ask why a lot, because that's where you actually get down to the root of a lot of requests. A lot of times I remember, and I'm sure some of you on this call too have, and that people will come to you with the solution. Like, oh, well, I need a checkbox. And really, to take that as a checkbox and just go build it, you could be missing a bigger opportunity to build a solution that would meet their need versus just a checkbox. So again, I want to encourage the people on the line to ask why. It's important. And if you're going to miss the boat on asking why, then I feel you're always going to be a junior admin. The fourth thing, this is huge, okay? These last two items really helped me personally switch my role when I was an admin, meaning it really helped me improve my efficiency as well as get leadership buy-in. So track requests. I don't know how many of you get phone calls, but back in the day in 2010, I was sales support running Salesforce. So I had, 50 to 75 seasoned sales reps. And when I say seasoned, I'm talking about people that have been with the organization for over 15 to 20 years. So you can imagine what adoption was like. But anyways, I started tracking every single phone call that I received with even a small little question. And what I was allowed to do then was estimate how much time it took me. So on that one phone call, it took me 30 minutes to educate this sales user how to do X, Y, and Z. However, maybe there was a request that came in from another end user who wanted an improvement, an enhancement to a process that was already there. Like, oh, well, we need to have a pick list value because we're now tracking this based on the initiative of your corporation. Well, that you would want to track, right? Because it's a specific request. And then how much time would you estimate that it's going to take you to do this? Then the last step is actually, once you're actually doing the work, log it. And log your work, if you can, in hour blocks every day. So these are 5 tips that's going to help you. And the reason why I say they're going to help you is because what you're doing is you're actually going to be building a visual tool to present to leadership. So I don't know if anyone on the call has thoughts or suggestions of what they've seen work within their organizations or have questions about these, but I do have some examples that we can talk to in a few minutes.
All of those are great out the gate tips. I'm not seeing anything in the chat as of yet, so if anybody has any comments or questions about what Kelly has just stated or thoughts, please speak up. Kelly, if I can ask you one question about your statement of logging in 1 hour blocks. So you're looking at 8 hours of work. So you would have basically, if you were to just put this in a checklist, today you spent 8 hours doing these 8 things. Is that what you're saying? Even if something only takes a half an hour, still round it off to an hour?
Yeah, that's just my suggestion, because where I'm going to go with this is a perfect leading example, Jackie, of how you can utilize this. But before I go there, to answer your question, it's really up to the individual. If you want to track specifically, like, hey, I added this pick list field, and it took me 15 minutes, go ahead and do that. The reason why I'm suggesting the 1 hour block is because you shouldn't just go and build, right? There should be thought behind it. There should be analysis behind it. There should be making sure you're not going to break something. And then there's also the thought process of, okay, I'm putting this in the sandbox, right? Because we as admins, we don't do anything in production. Then there's going to be, pushing that change. So it's really up to that individual. But the reason why I'm suggesting an hour block is because everybody has a different learning curve. And that just gives it like a fair, consistent block of time. So here's my example that I want to share with you guys. So one of the things I had come across in my career so far is we were getting so many requests, which was awesome. People wanted to see things enhanced, but I was an accidental admin who had multiple hats. So I possibly could not turn everything around, right? So before I could just go to leadership and say, hey, leadership, you need more resources on this, I had to be strategic. So I had to really think about how I was going to approach leadership. So for this example, I wanted to grow my team. Okay. So I went to my manager without even like a plan in place and just said, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I should be working on. And my boss was very supportive, and he's like, okay, well, what we need to do now today is we need to look at what can we take off your plate, which I was very thankful for. However, as that dialogue was happening, I really formulated that idea of a 1-hour block because I wanted to illustrate and show him this is how much time in one day I get stuff done. Now, maybe there was an enhancement of like a workflow rule that took me a lot longer than an hour. Would I block it as an hour? It depends on what my day looked like, right? But anyways, so I take that 1 month of everyday logged, and I present it to my leadership. This is everything that I've accomplished. And then I cross-reference that with the request and the time estimate. So by being able to compare the two and visually show our management team, I was taking the guesswork out of it for them. I had the facts in front of me. And at that point, management had to make a decision. Should we hire someone? If so, what would they be doing? So I took that on then as my next step, right? So, okay, I've now identified the request and I've logged my hours. Now let me help you create the position for this new role, right? Because I want to do everything I selfishly wanted to enjoy. And then all of the things I didn't enjoy so much or maybe weren't my strengths, I then put them in that other job description. So really, by using those requests and log hours, I was able to help my management quickly and easily identify that we needed to grow our team. So another example, or does anyone have questions about that?
I think we're good. I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. So then another example of using my 5 tips to help position your career is think about your organization and some of their strategic initiatives. A lot of the times we have huge projects that need to happen, but our management doesn't really understand that it's going to take time to develop some of this stuff, because when we do stuff, it's like magic, right? They don't know the actual work that goes in behind it. So another story that I can share with you is I wanted to build out the Salesforce roadmap and tie it back to my corporate initiatives at the time, because at that point, I was just kind of floundering, right? Like you get requests left and right and by this person, by that person, and this person said the CEO needs this by this date, and you're trying to prioritize and figure out what needs to get done. So by building a Salesforce roadmap, I actually was putting on my hat of number 3 as a consultant, and 4, all of the requests, I was bucketing them. Could I put that into an account enhancement project. Oh, I wonder if this process that they're looking to implement would go good under the service enhancement project. And all of those projects would somehow have to relate back up to the corporate initiative. So by using the steps 3 and 4 of your checklist and having a roadmap and then taking that roadmap to your leadership, they are going to have buy-in. They're going to see, oh my gosh, this person has put so much time and effort into actually planning out what could work for our Salesforce instance in this year. This is brilliant. So that's another example of getting leadership buy-in and using the checklist to advance your career.
Kelly, are you also including, when you're building out the time that you spend, are you also including the amount of time it takes for reviewing releases and your certification renewal tests and all of that? Is that part of this vision of also building your value as a team leader or whatever the position may be?
Absolutely. That is like a perfect example of really taking this time log and taking it to that next level, I think, is because making time to plan on your schedule that, okay, I have a release, like Winter 17's release is ending, I think, next month, and I hate to admit it, but yeah, I'm behind. So I need to get that done. So I've blocked off on my calendar a private time slot of 2 hours next week so that I can plan accordingly and get that done. My time is precious too, and that also sets a precedence to management, like, oh, she's really setting blocks of time for her to get this stuff done. It must be important. That's a great, great suggestion, Jackie. I love that suggestion.
So,
well,
Kelly,
it definitely makes sense. Go ahead, Dale.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we're talking about the tracking as well, are we doing that in a custom object right within Salesforce? Are we using Excel? What is the best way to keep track of all of this so that we can then spit it back out in some kind of format that is digestible and chartable and all of that?
Oh, well, by all means, if you can, use Salesforce. The cases object is great if you have like a type and you say Salesforce enhancement, or you can take it one step further. Oh, you're going to get me excited now, Jackie. You can take it one step further and have your own email that people can request enhancements or are having issues, and that email then automatically logs into a case in Salesforce. You then have the ability to run a report to visualize that, and also that what's nice about that is then management hopefully would be able to have access to that as well, so they could see also who are the people making such requests. It's making it visible and transparent. So that's how I would do it today. I will admit, back when I was an admin in 2010, I didn't know how, so I just used a spreadsheet.
Gotcha.
But now I think with the tools that we have capable with Salesforce, I would definitely use Salesforce.
So this is Dale, so I'll add on to that, and then I have a question back for you. So I'm in consulting now, but when I was a customer, I was tracking all requests and everything in Salesforce. I couldn't use cases because we had overtaxed it just enough that I didn't want to dip my toe in that. I had a custom object. I then threw time on it, which was hugely beneficial, but then I threw another object on it that for actual work done, I included what elements I had developed in Sandbox to then have a running list of what to promote to production, so that not only did I have a checklist of what to add to my change sets, I could then also go back and, wondering, okay, a pick list field was added in March of 2014. Why? I could go back and find what request that was actually attached to and start to have a documentation trail, which I found to be very beneficial.
That, Dale. Yeah.
Yeah, I was floored at how much it helped me out on so many occasions when trying to with a new feature request or a break fix situation. Oh, that saved my butt so many times. So and it was just one custom object that it was only a handful of fields, and it was so amazing. So if anybody has time to develop that, I may even, if I can find the dev org that I packaged it up in, I will try to share the link to that because it helped immensely. So then my question.
Let me ask this.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ask your question.
So my question, going back to the log time worked in 1 hour blocks every day, which I try to do. I will pre-plan on my Outlook calendar from 8 to 9, work on this, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, da-da-da. But how do you handle bits of work that maybe, you get into a good groove on, you get some momentum? What are your rules for yourself for budging that 1 hour per piece of work? Or do you just hard stop in an hour no matter what?
Oh, God, no, I don't hard stop. If you're in the groove, I totally know what you're saying. There's been many a times where you're doing that. I would just mentally make a note of that, and at the end of my day, go in and just log what I worked on. So if I know that project that I was working on or that process or whatever it may be that I was totally enthralled with, and it took me 3 hours, go ahead and, mark it as those 3 hours.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And I would say to the flip of that, because when we get brain block and we sit there and we look at something and it's just not coming, or the solution is just not there in our head and we cannot get past ourselves, get up and walk away. Go, get a drink of water or something and let your mind relax for a second. You'd be surprised at how many times you can come back to your computer and go, oh, it was staring me right in the face and I couldn't see it because I had brain block.
Oh, absolutely. I can add to that too, from the standpoint of a simple workflow or a process builder, and you know exactly what needs to be done, but you just can't figure it out right in that moment. Oh, that happens all the time. I give myself an hour of going down the rabbit hole, is what I call it. Then I step away, and then I come back. And if I can't figure it out when I come back, then I ding a coworker, or I reach out to the community, or I look and I research a little bit. But I try my best not to stew on something for longer than an hour.
That's really good advice. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Before we move on, I know Stuart has a question. Stuart, before we get to your question, I have one thing just to ask really quick because here's the question. So when you were talking about setting up an email for all of your users to send you their requests, and then that dumps into cases automatically, do you rather do it that way, or would you rather set up some kind of a submission form that through API then can dump it into to a case so you can gather the pick list values and things that you need, or the specifics that you need, rather than trying to translate a textual email?
I like both the solutions. I think for me it kind of depends on your customer, right? Are your customers going to fill out the form as thoroughly as sending an email? Because sometimes in an email it'll be 3 paragraphs long, but there could be a lot of information to digest in that 3 paragraphs versus if it's a pre-filled form. So it really, I think, boils down to knowing your customers. And then the challenge with both of them is the user going to even use them, right?
The form or the thing that they requested?
If the form was something they requested?
Well, yeah, you had said, are they going to use it? And my question was, are they going to use the form to get you the information, or are they actually going to use what they've requested? Because we run into that often where they request something and then it's not used.
Right.
Which is an interesting dynamic in itself.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You answered my question. Stuart has a really good one. Stuart, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and so we can hear your voice? Stuart, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Yeah, do you want to hear my voice? I think that's a good question.
I do.
I was going to say Stuart was overly judicious when we asked him to mute at the beginning. So
I muted on 2 ways. Sorry.
Double muted. All right. Well, the floor is yours, sir. So please ask away.
So you talked about knowing your customers and how your users are your customers. And right now in my work, I have some users that know what they want, but I have a majority of users that don't know what they want. So they might know that they want to improve some process, but they don't really know what that means in Salesforce or really in how to make those happen. And so the question that I listed on here was, do you have any tips and tricks for how you gain trust with your business users to partner with them and to figure out, okay, I know that the business users have a need, but they don't know enough about the need or the solution to be able to even verbalize that need. I don't know if you've ever had instances like that.
Oh, absolutely. Great question, Stuart. Oh my gosh. Yes and yes. So, I'm thinking. So how to build trust with my users is really important for engagement. So maybe they don't even realize that there's a process improvement possibility. So I would probably take something like that and develop it out in a developer org of my instance and get them engaged by showing them how more efficient maybe this process is. Do they like this idea? If they don't like it, how could we make it better? And I would start them in the dialogue right away. But I would have something to show them. It doesn't have to be totally built out, but a lot of times conceptually people can grasp things if it's visual. So if you have a developer org of your instance and it's maybe an email that could go out, build that process and just show them. It doesn't have to be complete, right? Because you would want their input and you maybe you wouldn't do it up to 100%. You would want to get their buy-in like, oh yeah, what if we created a task then to follow up from the email? Would that be helpful? And really start getting them engaged.
I agree with Kelly 100% on that. One of the things that I do, especially to gain that trusted advisor, which I think is what you're also looking for, is starting conceptually in, let's say, elements.cloud and kind of creating here's what I understand it to be today in a flow, kind of think Visio, but 1,000 times cooler as I describe it. So this is what I understand the process to be today, and here's kind of all of the manual inputs, just as an example. And what if we could take this 20-step process and we could get it down to 10 with all of this automation? So then visually they can see, okay, yeah, this is how it happens today, and here's the vision for what it is. And then they don't necessarily get caught up in clicks and pages. It's more, it's theory, I guess. So if you're looking for that trusted advisor role, I think that's a good place to start as well.
Yeah, I'd probably take it at that step first, to be honest. Kind of flow it out and get them brainstorming about it, and then probably build it out.
one thing I found as a customer, and I've also applied now in consulting, is just in the conversations that you have with users and with stakeholders, you want to give them confidence in what they're asking and talking about, because chances are they probably don't know. They know what they want, like in a conceptual sense. They probably don't know what that looks like in Salesforce, and then it's on you to figure out what they need, but you don't want to throw that at them in the very beginning conversations. You want to give them some confidence to help keep them engaged. I found if users asked me yes, no questions and the answer was yes, I was very excited to give a yes. If the answer was no or a maybe, it was, I'll have to look into that. Even if I knew like 100% of my brain said no, I couldn't tell them no, because I found that diminished their confidence and their want to be engaged, because depending on who you're talking to, it might be interpreted as, oh, I asked a dumb question. So you don't want to lose your users and therefore their trust in that. So is a great out from saying no.
Yeah. And that also avoids solutioning on the fly.
Yes.
And really getting into what is the business process. Because when we solution on the fly, we get ourselves into trouble because there are other factors that maybe we are not aware of that we haven't had an opportunity to investigate, whether that's existing functionality in Salesforce, behind the scenes, things that are going on that we're not privy to, we don't remember because maybe we didn't create them, somebody else did, and it does not affect our world. But when we sit down to start building out what the business process is, then we focus on what is the process, not what are we clicking in Salesforce, because they're two completely different things. So I agree.
Well, and yes, and you avoid the solutioning. You also avoid, when you say no, this tripped me up so many times, and I got burned by it a few times actually. Saying no, you can actually be wrong. You can find out you're wrong. Like somebody can ask you, can Salesforce do this? And you probably only know what you know. You know a lot about Salesforce, but you don't know everything about Salesforce. And I've had a few times, I'm sure we all have, where somebody asked us a question, we said no, and then upon further research found, oh, that was standard functionality that was rolled out 4 versions ago. And then we kind of lose credibility because we said no, it couldn't, and then turns out, yes, it could. So not saying no gives you that little bit of safety space to figure it out.
And no could mean no, you can't do it natively, but we can get into some coding and some fancy things, or there might be an app out there. So we always want to be able to investigate all kinds of things without giving that no, right off the bat. Justin Bars has a comment. Justin, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and share what you typed out in the chat.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is solid. Great way to end a week. I think you guys are really sort of just tapping the nail on the piece on the tension that feels to me the most sensitive. These guys, they want to do their job. They don't want to get fired. They want to get through their work at the end of the day. And you're this powerhouse of knowledge or this gatekeeper of Salesforce goodness, and they don't want to appear super dumb in front of you. So when we're, as a consultant, we're working with clients that are trying to figure out, can I do this? Can I not do this? And we're trying to push them to learn it. So we're pretty high challenge. We'll challenge the client to be like, yeah, we can do this. We're going to train you how to do it, and you're going to learn, and you're going to do Trailhead. But when we do know, like you're saying, that we're not sure if they're getting it or if it makes sense to them, we tell them or this is just something I'll just say the statement. What we find is after an implementation, or sometimes at the 90% mark of an implementation, we find out that you just start to understand it. These are folks that have CRM experience and maybe worked with other CRM systems like Blackbaud or Razor's Edge, but they'll generally say after the fact, we just didn't know what we didn't know. There's no way to know how Salesforce works. And this is great with declarative development, right? We're running into issues all the time with people that want to just program the heck out of Salesforce and this, that, and the other, and I'm just go buy the app. We're used to this as MVPs or just sort of doing consulting or doing development. but they just don't know any better. Like, I think that ignorance part that Dale shared earlier, like, we're just ignorant of stuff, and you can share your own stories of like, hey, once I built 14 custom objects for an org because I thought it was the right thing to do, and then I had to go deprecate most of them because it was bad practice. It was like really bad practices and stuff. So lowering the bar and making it easier for people to realize that you make mistakes and they make mistakes, and like, hey, like, where are you starting from? What is it you wanted to do? How are you doing it now? It feels like so personal. It's really it's part of why we do what we do, right? We're helping people figure out how to do their jobs better every day and making their life better. That was it.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
We're all people
with
just
that
trying to do the
also,
best we can. Yeah.
Exactly. And with 3 releases a year coming out, functionality is always changing. So, we don't necessarily absorb everything that is in every single 500-page release document, 3 times a year. So, giving ourselves the opportunity to. Oh, well, giving ourselves the opportunity to understand what the request is or what the requirement is, and then digesting all of that, because we have options. So give yourselves permission to investigate before you give a yes or no answer.
The other thing, too, if I can add to that, is I really like that comment of giving yourself permission to say, I'm not sure what the best solution is, right? But more importantly, if you get excited about something that they've asked for, you're going to earn trust from them, or that excitement will travel over to them. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I get excited when a customer has this idea, but they don't know how to formulate it in Salesforce, so I help them, right? And they're like, well, what if we could do something like this? And then my reaction is, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. Let's do that. That gets them super excited too. And it's okay, as I think I'm hearing a theme, like, we're all human, right? Like, no one's perfect. No one's going to know everything. However, us being the experts of Salesforce, no matter what your role is, you know how to research. You know where to look. You have a whole community of people to tap into, which is just amazing, and utilize them.
Absolutely. And just because you can do something one way does not necessarily mean that's the best way. So, again, give yourself time to do a couple of dry runs in a dev org and figure out, is this the right way to do it? Does this make the most sense?
I'm gonna use that advice going forward. I think I'm gonna advise all admins to do that as we migrate from Classic to Lightning. We will maybe prototype it or do it in the first phase. Have the page layouts have everything be one way, and then 6 months later you might look at it and say, who did that? Who built this stuff? Because that's not the right way to do it. And I think that's okay to say, based on what I know today and the resources that I have today, I'm going to build it this way, knowing that in 6 months I'm going to look at it and say, wow, that was really ugly. I could do it. I could do it a lot easier with tools in the future.
Absolutely, Stuart. If you think about where Salesforce was in 2010 compared to where it is today, I think they probably said the exact same thing. Just with the growth of functionality and things that the community has asked for, to say, hey, you know what? It would be great if we could do this. And guess what? Now we can do that. It's the same exact environment.
Well, and then something also to keep in mind as functionality evolves, as you go from Classic to Lightning, whatever it may be, anything that you're learning on your own. I mean, we've said prototype it in a dev org or build it in a dev org first and demo it, whatever. Anybody who has not learned how to make their own packages, unmanaged packages, learn how to do that, because you may stumble over the best recipe for functionality ever and you don't want to lose it and you want to apply it to your real production org. Learn, and it's very easy, learn unmanaged packages, and you can transport that functionality from org to org to org as long as it's your property, which then also saves time. And it keeps your mind fresh on how to keep evolving that. So.
You know what? That's a really good point. So here, let me ask the entire group, and I hope everybody has some recommendations. How do you keep track of really cool things that you develop that you might want to replicate in the future, but you don't have necessarily an application for it right now? Are you tracking that kind of stuff in Evernote, or you write a really cool formula that does something that you go, gosh, you know what? This is something that I should be able to replicate in other scenarios. How do you, aside from just flat out trying to remember that you did that, how do you regurgitate that information in the future?
Evernote. Christian Knapp is saying DevBox.
Ooh, DevBox, that's new. I've never heard of that.
Wunderlist from Stu. Google Keep. Yeah, I work with Mark Ross. I've looked over his shoulder a lot. He knows all the Google products. I've seen Keep, but haven't played with it. Christian saying a developer edition. Yeah. Yep, build it in a dev org.
Definitely build it out there.
Yeah.
Definitely build it out there. But when I'm going back and I go, gosh, you know what? I remember I wrote a formula that would concatenate a bunch of different fields, date stamp it, put it in a specific order, but I don't remember what it was. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at all of these other applications that you guys are listing. I'm going, I really need to check these out, because I use Evernote because it's searchable. And so I was just wondering if there's anything else that you use. That's very cool.
Well, honestly, I mean, you mentioned formulas. Granted, Salesforce isn't equal to Excel when it comes to formula and functionality, but it's pretty close. There's a lot of similarities. Excel is a quick and dirty place that you can play with formulas, throw data in there, get your proof of concept, and save that somewhere like in a Google Drive that is easily, it's cloud, so anywhere that you can get it from, you're getting your proof of concept right there without actually going through the work of building it in a dev org, because that does take a few more steps. So Excel is or Google Sheets, even better, Google Sheets is a good way to practice and store that stuff.
Oh, Christian has a suggestion here. Christian, you want to go ahead and explain this one? Because it sounds like this is something that you do. And if you're speaking, I can't hear you. Okay, I'll go ahead and read what Christian has written here. It says to put the stuff in DevBox, create a post in Chatter, and then add tags, and then it becomes easily searchable or retrievable. So I've never thought about using Chatter as a repository of information that I can then pull back out. Has anyone else ever done that?
No, but I like it. That is now actually 2 calls in a row that someone said they were using Chatter for something more powerful than its intended use. In the last meeting, John Graff said he has gotten away from using email alerts on workflow and has gone to tagging people on Chatter so that it's actually there and saved to get that email alert. And now this for personal knowledge keeping. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Let's do a quick time check here. We got about 11 minutes left. I want to open it up and make sure that everybody who has dialed in has an opportunity to ask anything about all of the things that we've either been talking about or burning questions that you may have about a project that you're currently working on or something that you're getting ready to tackle, or anything Salesforce related. So please feel free to chime in. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So Kelly, do you have any other tidbits of information that you want to share with the group?
I would suggest when we're talking about like leadership buy-in or peer buy-in, you may get an answer of no up front. Like, let's say there's this new app that you think would help improve a process and you think your organization should invest in it, and the leadership keeps saying no. The first thing is build a burning platform. And I don't know if that's lingo that everyone's familiar with, but burning platform is what's in it for me. It's another way of saying it, right? And then also, if they do say no, that's okay. Take it as a no, not right now, and follow up when the time is right. And it might not be right again, but still follow up. And the last point is when it comes to leadership, they have so many things on their plate, right, as you guys can imagine. So the more work that you can do for them and present it to them visually, along with maybe numbers or an ROI or a cost of something, this is going to help them see the effort that you're putting in. And it will only help build confidence in the leadership team that you know what you're doing. The last thing is, if you say you're going to do something, follow through. That is something that I've made so many mistakes on where, I got the yes from the leadership team, and then I never followed through, or I was late to following through. Doesn't really go well with management. So those are just some additional tips as it relates to leadership and getting buy-in.
Those are all great points. Great points. All right, does anyone have any thoughts or anything else you guys want to talk about before we say goodbye? Susan Thayer says, I'm super excited about the Sandbox Summer 17th release today. Susan, what's got you so excited? Anything in particular that you're going to check out?
Well, we're switching to Lightning, and there's a lot of things that we need from this release to actually make it a viable product. But there's some little nuggets like custom report type where you can add campaign members, some really nice fun tools like that that we've just kind of been waiting for a while.
Fantastic. You'll have to let us know how that goes.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let me see if there are any other questions in our chat. I think we covered everybody who was listed. Dale, thank you for taking those notes. That's great. Hopefully people can check out those resources. And
I will also share this this slide to the MVP Office Hours group.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And if you guys have not checked out Elements.cloud, it is my new favorite thing, and I cannot stop talking about it. One, because it's free.
Yeah.
Two, because
I'm working with a client right now.
Oh, cool. It is just absolutely amazing, and they have very, very good customer support. Right there in the app, there's a little chat widget, and they answer questions within sometimes seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes. So definitely check it out. All right, so our next call, May 19th, we have Jen Nelson on the docket. Jen has been around the community for, 12 years in Salesforce roles, 22 years in technology in general. If you do not know Jen, check her out on Twitter and follow her. Just like Kelly, she also is a powerhouse of information. And then coming up after that, we've got Jocelyn, who is going to actually talk to us about becoming a Scrum Master. Did I say that right, Dale? Scrum Master?
That is correct.
Fantastic. So I know nothing about that world. So if this is something that you are interested in, she is going to talk about the entire world of Scrum and what it takes to become a Scrum Master. So put those 2 dates on your calendar so that you've got us earmarked, and want to just give Kelly our utmost appreciation for joining us today and giving us the lowdown on leadership buy-in and advancing our careers, and giving us all of that information on how to really get ourselves organized so that we can tackle the things that we want, get the buy-in that we need, and really show our value as Salesforce admins and or developers, or whatever role we're playing when it comes to Salesforce. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Great discussion. If there's anything that you would like to say before we bid you adieu, please do.
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate this opportunity just to shed some light on some of my experiences, but also more importantly, if anyone has additional questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at Twitter at chattyadmin without the I.
Great. We'll do that. Thank you so much. Everyone, have a great weekend, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.